Welcome to our new podcast. I'm your host, Giovanni Rosado, joined by some of my closest friends, Jose Lopez, and the man behind the computer, Amor Freeman. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
I'm doing good. Thank you.
It's great to hear. So our topic today is about the importance of good mental health. And this is something I hold close to me because a lot of my family members are affected by this, and, it affects me a little bit too. Now, what I'm always interested in hearing about is what do you think anxiety and depression is, and what is it to you?
Well, I personally think anxiety is something that, as humans, we just naturally have, but each human has it to a certain extent as their personality builds throughout the beginning of their life. So events could occur that would increase certain people's anxieties, or more people are more open and just kind of outgoing, but while others are shy.
At first I remember I was like really confused because back then I had the feelings of anxiety, but I didn't know what it was back then. I was just always so scared and frantic and just anxious, and I didn't know what I was feeling. I was just shaking and I could hardly breathe. I felt like I was getting choked up, and my face was turning red. I was and I didn't really know what that feeling was until, my parents thought that it would be right for me to go to get myself a counselor and talk to someone. So I got myself a therapist. I talked to them, and they explained to me that it was anxiety that I was having, and it was something that at first, I was scared to hear that, but the more I learned about it, it's something that people go through in life.
Yeah.
And it's something I deal with every day. I still get nervous about a lot of things I'm even nervous about right now, but I still, try to keep myself calm. I try the breathing exercises, I count to 10, and it's just, it's difficult. It's difficult, but,
Yeah, it's just something that everybody's gonna have eventually. You're gonna reach a point where you're gonna feel like you described, and it's gonna feel confusing for the first time in your life, of course. But as you get used to it, you learn, and you kind of adapt, and each people can have their own ways of coping with it. But again, it's best to talk to somebody and be open about somebody as to why you felt that way, instead of letting it bottle it in and just kind of just build up.
Yeah, what events did you have to deal with in life that kind of brought that anxiety?
Well, usually it would just be just for me, I kind of have it more extreme, where it's kind of like every day I just have it.
Yeah.
Like the only time that I don't have it is when I'm at home.
Yeah.
But when I'm outside in school and classes, I just have it.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot, but it's weird because even at home I still get anxiety a lot because I get scared to talk to my parents about certain things, and I know a lot of people deal with that too. And I basically talk to myself, and that's very dangerous to go ahead and be in your mind all the time and talk to yourself in your head because you say a lot of things that may be negative, and you don't really understand what you're going through, and you might need another person's perspective, just because you don't really know. I don't really know how to describe it sometimes. It's like, before I go to bed every day, I always talk to myself, and I always, try to
talk about to myself.
Yeah, I always talk about the day and how it went and how things could have been better. I always think about that. I always think about the past. I always think about what could have been.
Yeah, and what could be. I tend to plan.
Yeah.
The next day.
And especially now that I'm a senior and college is on the horizon and stuff like that, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I remember it was 2 weeks ago, I was before I went to bed, I could not sleep whatsoever. I was shaking. I was in my head just thinking, what am I gonna do? Truly, what am I going to do? I was having a panic attack. I started crying. I admit I started crying. I didn't know at the time what to really do, and I right now I'm contemplating because I've had therapists in the past, but the last one I had, she was a great person. She was a great person, but I feel like she didn't help me. I helped myself. And sometimes, yeah, you do kind of help yourself because if you don't have a therapist that's really involved in the conversation, and she's just there to just
be there.
Just be there really is, it's great to have another person who's listening. It's great to have someone, who listens and she doesn't have to say anything. That's cool, but I feel like she should have said some things
Been
too.
more involved.
Yeah.
That's how my therapist was. The last, she wasn't completely involved.
Yeah.
She just kind of sat there and write what I wrote, but I didn't feel like she was actually connecting with me into what I said and what was coming out of my mind.
Yeah.
Really.
And I would tell my therapist a bunch of things, but I know that, she wants to keep things confidential and stuff like that. But I think like some of the things that I said to her, she probably should have told my parents, but she didn't. And the thing was, luckily my brother was there because my brother had overheard, and he had told my mother, and my mother sat down with me and talked about it, and I actually felt way more better. Like sometimes you don't even really need a therapist. You just need the people who are around you.
Yeah,
like to comfort
sometimes I feel like it's better to have like your mother or your father, somebody who you love, and that's better than a therapist because you live with that person. So of course you're gonna feel more attached to them, and they're gonna understand you better.
And just thinking about it, I wonder how other students in this school, like what they may be going through, because it's difficult for me, but just imagine the freshmen that are coming in and the new students and all that, because I remember when I was coming in, I was very nervous, I was scared, I thought I was going to lose all my friends, like I was just going to be separated, and it was...
Some people do. I lost a lot of my friends from my old school, just because of the transition and because we never saw each other again. So I was stressed, I was scared about the new school, because I've always had the same school as a kid. So, of course, moving to a new school, it just put a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah. Now, I'm just wondering, where do you think, like, your anxiety stemmed from? Like, what event might have triggered that, if you don't mind talking about that, because I can talk about it, too.
Well, I talk about it all the time. It was when I was a kid, and it was a camping trip. And there was this pool, like our pool, 3 footer, and then the 10. I went to the 10, but I was holding on to the side.
Yeah.
And I fell. So I went, all the way down. I touched the bottom and everything.
Yeah.
And I almost died.
Wow.
So I felt and to this day I'm deadly scared of water. I can't get in water.
Yeah.
And I guess that in a way it kind of stems from that in a way, because there are other things that I'm scared of as well, but not as bad.
Yeah.
But when I get near water, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't get near the water or anything.
Yeah.
So an event like that could happen to other people, and they could feel the same way. Always remembering it and kind of remembering that feeling that you had at that moment can trigger the anxiety that you would have later in life.
For me, what stemmed from, in my life, probably the things I've overheard a lot of my family members say to each other, when there's fights and all that, and the certain words that are exchanged, I always remember that. There's certain words that I do remember, but I'm not comfortable speaking about it, but there are some words that really affect me, and I always remember that when I'm having anxiety. I always think of a lot of the things in the past, and they just come back to me, and it's my mind becomes flooded with negative thoughts, and it's kind of difficult to overcome that. But at the same time, I do learn from these experiences, and I do learn from all the things that I have seen and a lot of the words that I've heard. So I just learned to I use that as a model of what not to be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because there are certain things that they've done, my parents, that I kind of see it as I don't want to be that. So it's kind of shaped me in a sense. So there is always like a good side to everything bad. Like, yeah, you have the anxiety, but when you cope with that, then you'll realize, I'm never gonna do that. Mm-hmm. So you end up only having the good side of the situation.
Yeah. And someone really close to me goes through anxiety and depression every single day, and it's really bad, like really bad. He has, he has medicine that's prescribed to him, and that medicine, he overtakes it sometimes because he really gets bad panic attacks, and that's something that really I've always said it. I don't want medication. I do not want medication. I would rather receive, help from therapists or my family members and just talk it out. I don't want medicine, but sometimes people need medicine to cope with it, and I understand that. I fully understand that. But some people abuse medicine, and it really, really messes up their heads.
So where it's not helping. It's just making it worse.
Yeah, it's not healthy. It makes it worse. They become dependent on that medicine, and they just can't stop. And even like when they overtake it, and the thing is, there's a limit to what you get prescribed. There's a limit, and you can't go ahead and get another prescription like that. So when
they run out,
you go ahead and you take from people, and you try to make the money back, so that then you can go buy it in the streets. And that's that's something that I hope people start from now to go ahead and get some help and talk it out with people. Don't be scared, because I was scared in the beginning, but it's something every day that I have to deal with, and it's something that now it's kind of normal. It's sad to say, but it's normal to me now.
Yeah.
And so I go ahead and I talk about it, and it feels healing all the time. Like, sometimes I'm so scared to say something, but then I go ahead and just say it. I don't know, maybe it's like sometimes I have a good day and I just feel like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it.
And you just feel like confident, or you just feel good about it, and you just want to get it out.
But then again, on the bright side, anxiety, sometimes it's like you have days where like it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Like you have those really bright moments, and like you have really high energy, so you try to keep it going, you try to grasp it, and you don't want it to leave, so you just keep going, and the day flows by so fast, and then sometimes you just hit a bump, and you go back down again, and you're sad, and you don't want to talk to anyone, you want nothing to do with them, and then you have those highs again where you're just so happy, you're so positive, like you feel like you're on top of the world, and you can't take those days for granted. You cannot take those days for granted. Always enjoy those days. Always try to remember those days over the negative days that you've had.
Like cherish them.
Yeah.
And always remember them.
Because that's what I try to do. Like every time I have a good day, I always tell my mom about it.
Or like I try my best to spend the day well, like with family, or if it's at school, I just be positive to everybody. Yeah. Try to be nice to everybody.
During the holidays, there was a lot of parties and stuff like that, and I get a lot of anxiety with a lot of people around, but I tried to overcome that, and I did, and I was spending time with my family, and it felt so great. So sometimes you gotta go ahead and just do it. Sometimes don't even think about it. Just go ahead and do it. Whatever scares you, go ahead and try to overcome it. Go ahead.
And as well, like there's a lot of times where I would get nervous, but the outcome isn't so bad.
Yeah.
Like stuff like at parties, like what can go wrong? What's the worst that can possibly happen?
Yeah, I always replay scenarios in my head all the time. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And the thing is, I always think about the negative.
Yeah, I always think about the negative.
Always. I replay the scenarios in my head, and I think about the negative all the time. But there's places that I've gone to get help. River Valley's Center is a place that I've gone plenty of times.
Yeah,
and my family members have gone there too. I've gone to 2 different locations, one in Holyoke and one in Chicopee, and they have really great people there, and they really do care about their jobs, and it was always nice to go ahead and talk to someone and just vent out.
Just let it all go.
Yeah. But there's also the Holyoke Public Schools, if you go onto their website too, they do have, you go to the About section, and then you go to the specific, it says the nurses and all that, the nurses, health and wellness.
Health.
They also deal with, mental health, and that's great too. I didn't even know that to begin with, and until I did some of my research. It's not, there's a lot of places around you where you can actually get help. All you have to do is just let someone know. Talk to your teachers, and they probably would have told you, hey, there's places around here where you can go ahead and get some help. It's,
And like if you're having some sort of like a moment or some sort of like you just need to talk to somebody at school, like we have the counselors and the nurse, like just stop by and just sit down. I'm sure they'll listen.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is just be open with them. I've done it many times before.
Yeah. And there's also the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is another great place. If you don't feel like being in person with someone and you just want to talk to someone over the phone, which, a lot of teenagers are always on their phones anyway, so it would be, it's a great way to go ahead and vent, and you don't have to really feel nervous. You can be in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to access. You don't have to physically go anywhere. You can do it whenever you want.
Yeah.
And they're always open to listen.
Well, going back to the counselors in school, though, what I just remembered now is I remember one day where I went into school and I felt like so uncomfortable because I felt like everyone around me didn't really like me because it was a new school. And I remember that day I really couldn't take it. I told my teacher, which it was the first time I ever spoke up in that class. I told my teacher I have to go to the counselor's office. I really have to go and talk to one of them. And so I did, and I talked about it. I let it all out. I felt better in the end, and actually the school year went great after that. I had a few stops at the guidance office, and it did get better. But I always recommend, if you don't really feel comfortable talking to a guidance counselor, go ahead and use the Lifeline, or maybe even talk to your parents, because that works even better for me, really, if but sometimes people don't really have great relationships with their parents, or great relationships with their
friends as well. I speak to friends sometimes as well.
Yeah, that's always a great thing, because we're all in the same age range, and we all go through the same thing.
Yeah, we understand each other. Like if it's relating to just being a teenager and going through those years, it's better. Yeah. For me, it's better to talk to friends because we're all going through it together.
Yeah.
And like about the situation, it's kind of like, it's all about like crossing that line. Like once you get past your fears and just do what you're gonna do, you'll be fine. Like I've done it so many times. There's been so many times where I've crossed it and like afterwards, it just goes away.
Yeah.
Like the feeling's just gone.
Like you have certain fears, and yes, you do overcome them, but then you also have other fears that you may gain through your life, and you're gonna have that bump again. But once you overcome it, there you go. You won't have to deal with those fears anymore. You've overcome them. But then again, there's other fears, and then you have to overcome those. It's an uphill battle for sure. But once you overcome those things, they're gone. Those fears are gone, and you're used to doing these certain things. Whether it's talking to someone specifically that you're like, say you have a crush on someone and you're scared about it, go ahead and just do it.
Yeah, because nothing that bad can happen in reality. So it's just kind of like, just do it, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you need help talking to somebody, you can talk to your friend, your parents, counselor, or call the number.
Yeah. I guess that's all the time we have today, folks, but just remember that sometimes I know it's hard, it's difficult, and I go through this all the time, and Jose goes through it all the time, and I'm sure even Amor goes through it, but, we can help each other. Everyone who may go through the same struggles, we can come together and we can try to at least cope with it. We can't necessarily stop anxiety or depression, but we can at least cope with it.
Yeah, it's about helping each other.
Yeah, and try to maintain a great, healthy mind state, and that's it. I'll see you guys.